Señoritas y señores, bienvenidos a otro video para Español 2. Bienvenidos otra vez a mi casa. Muchas gracias por acompañarme. Y estamos en el video número 3. Sí, el tercer video del año escolar. Increíble. So right about now, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you guys got the hang of how these YouTube videos work if you're new to my class or if you're new to, you know, the way I operate. And so I want to say thanks very much. Thanks for checking in online, and I hope that these videos are being of use to you so you can learn better Español. So once again, señoritas y señores, a friendly reminder that yes, we all know that high school can be a drag. Trust me, you know, I've been on that road that you guys are traveling on right now. But also you got to trust me when I tell you that if you work hard, if you study, if you invest in your education, then you're investing in your future, and it's going to return dividends many more times than you can imagine. All right, so get that high school diploma and learn some Spanish, and it's gonna benefit you pretty nicely. All right, it's hard to see right now. Trust me, when you're like 16 years old, when you're 15 years old, all you want to do is just run home and play on your Xbox or something like that. I understand, I get it, but please just know that this is a long journey that you guys are taking, and every step forward is a step closer to your ultimate goals. So stay positive, people. Stay positive out there. Just see if you could try to just keep pounding, just keep grinding, just keep on your flow, and things will work out for you. Anyway, okay, enough of my preaching. All right, listen, video number 3. Let me tell you what this is all about. We're moving on in chapter 1A in your Spanish 2 book, and the main focus of this chapter is going to be stem changing present tense verbs. What? Stem changing present tense verbs. And they can be very confusing sometimes because as it is, you might find it tough to conjugate present tense verbs, but when there's spelling changes involved, then then it gets a little sideways sometimes. And then there's a few other things I'm going to address as well. But thanks again for visiting me on my YouTube channel. Of course, don't forget, make sure that you leave your comment below if you're in one of my classes for your homework points. But let's get right to it, señoritas y señores. Let's go to my computadora and let's get going with this third video of the school year. All right, here we go. Señoritas y señores, before we move on to the grammar section of chapter 1A, this is for video número 3, there are a couple of vocabulary words that were not included on this page, página 40, in your libro. So if you checked in with me last time, video número 2, you know that I had you guys mirar, escuchar, repetir. I had you guys look, listen, and repeat after me so that you know how these words are supposed to be pronounced, also what they mean, and hopefully you're practicing at home. So chapter 1A, once again, the theme is ¿Qué haces en la escuela? And this is all about your school day and how how you participate in school activities and some of the school rules that you need to follow and stuff that you need in class. And but also, if you're going to be talking about terminology that has to do with you being at school, take a look at this part right over here. Yes, indeed, señoritas y señores. Let me just get a better shot of that. In order for you to get better at Español, especially at level 2, you're going to want to, is this the one? Oh, no, those are covered. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. Check it out. Follow me to página 22. There it is, página 22. Para decir más. Okay, so in Spanish 1, you've already learned how to say math class, la clase de matemáticas, English class, la clase de inglés, science, la clase de ciencias naturales. So, but if you want to keep talking about the classes that you're taking in Spanish, here are some of the Spanish names for the classes that you might be taking right now. And so let's start with the first one. Repeat after me, everybody. El álgebra. El álgebra. Now, quick note. This is still considered a feminine noun, but the weird thing is, look at this. The definite article is not la, it's el. Because sometimes in Spanish, what they decided to do was to swap out the la and put the el instead so it could be easier to say. All right, so el álgebra flows much better than la álgebra. Sounds like, somebody's kind of stuttering there. And that happens with other words such as agua. Okay, agua is a feminine noun, but you say el agua and you don't say la agua because, again, see, there you go. That's what happens there, okay? And so that's what they did with el álgebra, okay? So just a little FYI. Don't forget the little accent mark over the first vowel, the A. And we'll hopefully later this year review the purpose of Spanish accent marks. They are necessary. If you see it the way it is in the libro, por favor, write it on your paper. Please include those. Yes, I would very much consider those part of the spelling as we move along into La Clase de Español nivel número 2. All right, so please be sure that you include your accent marks. All right, let's keep going. Repeat after me. La biología. La biología. La física. La física. La geografía. La geografía. La geometría. La geometría. La historia. La historia. La literatura. La literatura. And then finally we got la química. La química. And there you go. All right. Down here it says, para más clases, mira a la página 498. I suppose page 498 in your textbook has more names of classes in Español. Okay, señoritas y señores, I'm going to take myself out of the picture for the moment because I am going to go over with you something called stem changing verbs. This is all found on página 27, page 27 in your Spanish 2 textbook. All right, so in order for you to be successful at something like this, you're gonna need to know the basics about conjugating regular verbs in the present tense. And for that, please watch my first video número 1, where we review all about AR ending infinitives, ER ending infinitives, IR ending infinitives, and how you write the stem and then put the appropriate endings. So go back and watch that and get that down before you start with this, because this right over here can really confuse people if you let it. So I hope you've done the research. So here we go. All right, stem changing verbs. And so hopefully building on what you learned in the first video, now you can see that sometimes Spanish rules are made to be broken. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you're going to have to make some spelling changes in the way you conjugate verbs or use verbs in the present tense. All right. So according to the libro right over here, it says 3 kinds of stem changing verbs that you've learned. Actually, I'm not really sure what you've learned in Spanish 1. I can tell you right now, this is one that you learned. Let me go ahead and do this. This might look familiar to some of you guys. Jugar. Yeah, jugar. Of course, everyone knows that the verb jugar means to play. All right. And so what happens here is that in the case of jugar, if I want to say I play a sport or a game, you know, if we follow the rules exactly, then we wind up like that. But everyone knows that's not true. So you don't want to say yo jugo, I juice. That doesn't sound right. Yo juego. Okay, so maybe this is ringing a bell. Maybe this is kind of, you know, reminding you of what happened in Spanish 1, or, you know, the verb jugar that you guys learned in Spanish 1 if you took Spanish 1. Just, you know, to make it brief, let me just go ahead and write the rest. Yo juego, tú juegas, usted, él, ella juega, nosotros, sometimes nosotras jugamos. Look at this. No stem change there. Ustedes, ellos, ellas juegan. For your consideration, if you're serious about going to España, you could probably write this if you want, but we don't really use it too much here in the Americas. Vosotros jugáis, for those of you who are gearing up to take a big old Spanish adventure. But there you go. All right, so this is an example of a stem changing verb, and it's the same exact strategy, what we're about to do in a moment. But the stem changes here, as you can see. The stem changes here, the stem changes here. The stem does not change over here or over here. Okay, so, and then finally the stem does change once again right over here. All right. The book does say that, you know, one way to memorize this whole thing is if like you kind of do this, if you draw like an outline over where the stem change occurs in a verb like jugar, then you can see that it kind of, you know, takes on the shape of a boot or a shoe. So maybe that's one way to memorize where you guys have to change that stem and where you leave it alone. Okay, señoritas y señores, so you saw an example of a stem changing verb in action. It was actually more of a review where you have a U in the stem of your verb and then you have to change the U to a UE spelling when you want to conjugate the verb jugar. Let's move on to what the libro says. Once again, this is all on página 27, page 27 in your libro. Let's start with the verb poder. Friendly reminder, ladies and gentlemen, when you're using the verb poder, the very next verb after it is always in its infinitive, A-R-E-R-I-R ending. That's why you always say puedo ir al baño and you don't say puedo voy al baño, because that is obviously, that's incorrect Spanish. So puedo caminar, puedo tomar agua, puedo ir al baño, podemos jugar videojuegos. You get the idea. Anyway, but there it is. So real quick, let's just recap how poder works out. Yo puedo, tú puedes, usted, él, ella puede, oops, nosotros, or sometimes nosotras, podemos, no stem change, ustedes, ellos, ellas pueden. All right. So as you can see, señoritas y señores, this is when you have an O in your stem and it's got to change to a UE. So it happens here, it happens here, it happens here. It does not happen here. And it happens once again there. So you can see right there. Also, check it out, page 27. There are other verbs that follow the same strategy, such as almorzar, and that can mean to eat a lunch or maybe sometimes even like a late breakfast. Costar, dormir. All right, so if you're going to be conjugating any of those in the present tense, those all have stem changes, and you got to do the same thing that you did with the verb poder. Next up, señoritas y señores, let's analyze the verb empezar. The verb empezar means to begin, and as you can see, empezar has an E to an IE spelling change in the stem. Empezar, to begin. So let's break it down. Here we go. This is how it breaks down. Yo empiezo. Tú empiezas. Usted, él, ella empieza. Nosotros empezamos. No stem change there. Ustedes, ellos, ellas empieza. All right. So, once again, we had a stem change here, 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 not here, and then once again right there. So that is the way the verb empezar breaks down. And the verbs that are similar to the approach that you have to take with empezar, entender. All right, so you have to make sure that the E in entender, the second E, not the first E, changes to an IE when you conjugate that in the present tense. Pensar, so this E right over here changes to an IE when you conjugate it. Preferir, this one's a tough one because there's two E's and you're always thinking to yourself, well, which one do I change? It's going to be the second E. It's going to be the second E, not the first E, the second E that changes in the stem. And then querer, this E right over here, this first E, querer. So yeah, so you're going to have to memorize when to do all this. And so again, just like anything, in order for you to get good at it, you got to practice. Okay, class, the last example of a stem changing verb in the present tense. The book gives pedir as an example. All right. So here we go. So let's take a look at how that all plays out. You can see right here that pedir means to ask for, and it's going to be the E in pedir that changes to an I when you conjugate it in the present tense. So here we go. Yo pido. Tú pides. Usted, él, ella pide. Nosotros, sometimes nosotras pedimos. Ustedes, ellos, ellas piden. Alright, so just like before, señoritas y señores, that E changes to an I here, 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 and here, not there. And so that is a quick look at the verb pedir, to ask for. So please be sure that you spell this correctly when you have to, when you got to do it. So also, there are a couple of verbs that behave like pedir. Right over here, you can see servir, all right? And then you can see repetir. So, and when it comes to repetir, it's not the first E that has the stem change. It's the second E that has the stem change if you're going to be changing the stem using that in the present tense. Finalmente, señoritas y señores, let's move on to página 31 en your libro. Vamos a estudiar sobre las palabras afirmativas y negativas. Affirmative and negative words, ladies and gentlemen. So you've learned quite a few of them in Spanish 1 if you took Spanish 1. Remember that to make a sentence negative, you usually put the word no in front of the verb. So if you say something like, no sacamos buenas notas en la clase de álgebra, we don't get good grades in algebra class. Just put the word no in front to negate the whole sentence. Of course, if you leave out the word no, then it means, yes, we get good notes or good grades in algebra class. Sacamos buenas notas en la clase de álgebra. But in this case, no sacamos buenas notas. Sometimes you can also use a negative word after the verb. So don't forget that in English, a lot of times you can't use more than one negative word. At least that's what the English, language rules dictate. But in Spanish, it is possible for you to use multiple negative words in the same sentence. No estudiamos nunca el sábado por la noche. We never study at all on Saturday nights or something like that. So as you can see, no put in front of the whole sentence negates the whole thing, but then nunca kind of underlines that this never happens at all. No estudiamos nunca el sábado por la noche. So maybe this looks familiar to you. Maybe you remember from Español 1. But let's run down the list, the two columns right over here as to which affirmative and negative words you're going to need to know for Chapter 1A. Here we go. The ones that are affirmative. Alguien, algo, algún, alguno, sometimes algunos, alguna, sometimes algunas, siempre, and then finally, también. The negative words, we got nadie, nada, ningún, ninguno, ninguna, nunca, tampoco. All right. Now, here's the thing about alguno, alguna, algunos, and algunas, and then also ninguno or ninguna. Well, let's analyze these words right here because you're gonna have to take into account the number gender rules in Spanish. Okay, so for example, keep in mind if it's whatever you're describing, is it going to be singular, is it going to be plural, is it going to be masculine, is it going to be feminine? So here's a couple of examples. Let me just zoom in on that really quick. Person A asks, ¿Ustedes van al laboratorio de computadoras en algunas clases? Okay, so as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, note the word placement. The word algunas is going to go before clases in this case, all right? And then not only that, notice that it does not say algún, it does not say alguno, it does not say algunos. Since clases is feminine plural, you're going to have to put the feminine plural form of that word to match up with it. Matchy is what you got to do in Español. So, algunas clases. All right. So, you guys are going to the computer lab in some classes, is what they're asking in this first sentence. And then person B says, no, comma. Well, they don't say comma, but no vamos al laboratorio en ninguna clase. Again, note the word placement. It goes before the word clase in the sentence. And then, of course, la clase is singular and feminine. So you're going to put, instead of ningún, you're going to put ninguna to go matchy with clase. If this is feminine, then this is going to take on a feminine form. All right. Take a look over here. When alguno and ninguno come before a masculine singular noun, you're going to have to drop the last letter and you're going to put an accent mark over the last vowel. So, alguno changes to algún and ninguno changes to ningún. And that happens only before a masculine singular noun. Before a masculine singular noun. So you could probably already see these words in action. The word discurso, a discourse or a discussion or some type of something like that, that's going to be a singular and masculine noun. And so what you got to do according to the rules here, you're going to have to change alguno to algún. ¿Vas a dar algún discurso en la clase de inglés? Are you going to give some type of discourse in English class? Person B says, no voy a dar ningún discurso. Once again, you take ninguno, and since discurso is masculine singular, you can see right over here your adaptation that you need to do. Okay, drop the O, add the accent mark over the last vowel, the U. Ningún discurso. Bueno, señoritas y señores, that's just about going to do it for this video. I want to say once again, muchas gracias por ver estos videos. Por favor, no se les olvide dejar un comentario abajo. Yes, please leave a comment below so that you guys can get the points. All right, so now it's time for me to get out of here. My baby boy Sam is downstairs. I think he might have had a diaper blowout. And as you can see, here's my baby girl Penny. And she's kind of just hanging out. So it's going to be a little bit of a daddy-daughter time for me. And I'll see you guys in la clase de Español. So thanks a lot for watching these videos. Once again, señoritas y señores, I'll catch you in the next one. Adios!